I am Brian Conlan. I am president of DAX US. I run the day-to-day operations here for our US business. I was employee number one of Audio HQ 11 years ago when our founders, Matt Katera and Jeff McCarthy, started the business. Now I'm overseeing the next phase of DAX and kind of taking us into the future of programmatic audio, and especially podcasting is an area of focus for us as we go forward.
So you're part of Global, which owns radio stations and podcast companies and out-of-home advertising and DAX. What's the elevator pitch for what DAX is and what DAX does?
DAX is an audio SSP that connects supply with brands and makes curation of inventory easy for advertisers to activate campaigns and measure outcomes, I think would be the elevator pitch. The challenge we have is DAX US is slightly different than DAX UK because they operate with all of the owned and operated radio stations that Global owns. Here we are a reseller of inventory. So right now we partner with 20 different pure play partners and about 400 radio stations in the US market that are 100% exclusive to DAX. So the DAX US elevator pitch is we have access to over 40 million monthly uniques that are exclusive to the DAX US team. And that makes up about a fifth of the streaming audio marketplace. So by not buying DAX, you're missing out on a fifth of the potential consumers for your brand.
Yeah, my notes tell me that DAX reaches more listeners than Spotify or Pandora or iHeart. So where are those listeners?
Those are subscribers that pay for the free version without the ads. And I think what we try and lean into is that DAX is an advertiser-first organization, not a subscriber-first organization. Pandora and Spotify are great platforms, right? There's no combating that statement. They are where brands want to be. But I think in reality, the actual ad-supported audience is much smaller than brands may perceive the platform to be in the overall landscape. One thing that we really leaned into is if you look at Spotify, Pandora, and iHeart, they only account for about 55% of the digital audio ad spend currently. So there is a large portion of consumers you are not reaching by only buying those three. So those three absolutely have a seat at the table. But what DAX looks to do is become that reach and efficiency advertiser or audiences at scale, essentially, is really what we try and do here and be that reach extension and efficiency play to bring in the overall buy and help them fill that untapped gap of audience.
DAX is clearly a very big company in terms of the amount of audience that you are reaching and everything else. I'm wondering why. I've not written an awful lot about DAX, and I'm wondering why we haven't heard more. You know, it's almost like a sleeping giant, isn't it? Why is that?
I think that's why we're talking today, to be honest.
Is it my fault, Brian?
No.
Is it my fault?
I don't think it's your fault. I think when we first started the company at Audio HQ, we tried to do a lot of press releases, talking about our exclusive partnerships. Post-COVID, we just kind of let the business run steady course, right? I don't think we did a lot of news flashes post-acquisition. But now in my role, I think this is a big opportunity for us to lean in now and start to get some recognition in the marketplace because we do have a tremendous value prop for advertisers. We built a lot of loyal customers over 11 years in business. You're not going to succeed for 11 years if you're doing something wrong, right? I mean, we built these relationships. We provide ROI for advertisers. We've got a lot of these Fortune 500 brands that have come to us. We've gotten verbal approval, and then we go to the client phase, and they're like, who is DAX, right? It's, to your point, we're a giant that's a little bit invisible. So I think what I'm trying to do is just get our message out there and let people know that we are here to help with monetization and then help brands find unique audience that's additive to their media plan.
When we were setting up this interview, I was told that you would tell us why audio is broken today. And that sounds interesting. So Brian, why is audio broken today?
We don't get a proper seat at the table, right? I think there is a lack of measurement to get audio its proper recognition on a media plan. That's why I think it's broken. Something that I've spoken about, I think it last time was with Brian Barlett at the podcast movement, was around if you look at these media plans, it's very easy for audio to be the first one that gets thrown off the plan because it's just not performing in these MMM models within the industry holding companies. But for me, we know it provides tremendous value for brands. We know it provides reach. It's providing an ROI. It's just not being measured the same way CTV and display and search are holistically on these media plans. So there's no way for these agencies to kind of talk about the value prop and get brands to commit to it. So I think we've solved for measurement attribution, but it's still within our ecosystem with companies like Claritas and Podscribe providing great benefits to advertisers, but that's still in a siloed fashion, right? We're not talking about it holistically across the budgets. And how do we take budget from social and convert it to audio dollars? Like there's no way to really do that easily now. And that's why I feel like our industry is broken. One of the things that drives me personally, frustrates me personally, is the statement that we've heard for 5 or 6 years now, where audio is 30% of a consumer's day, but it's still 5 to 6% of the budgets. We've talked about that for many years in a row, and we're still not figuring out how to properly change that. So I think that's something that we need to holistically come together, competitors, frenemies in the space, and put our heads together about how do we actually drive impact and change to allow audio to get proper recognition, drive more dollars for everyone in the space.
Yeah, there was a report recently from Oxford Road saying that podcasting is missing $1 billion in ad revenue because it doesn't have good enough measurement. Do you agree with Dan there?
Yeah, I do. I think they definitely are onto something there. And I think one of the things we have to worry about as an industry is YouTube is this big, great partner for a lot of people from a podcast reach standpoint. But what does that do for the audio strategy long term, right? We're leaning into video so much. You're seeing Spotify and iHeart do these Netflix integrations, and there's a place for that from a reach extension standpoint. But if they're not providing the back end measurement to holistically tell the story of the episode, is it really helping your audio budget grow, right? And the perception of audio, it's helping the video component of it grow, not the audio side. And I think podcast is such a interesting medium because you're getting that one-to-one connection in your headphones with the host that you trust every single day. And I think the video component is because that's how consumption's shifting in the landscape. But again, audio is the core of what a podcast really is. So
I was in Norway about 10 years ago, and I remember going to one of the radio stations, and they were explaining how their research works, and they used exactly the same system, the same sort of automatic pager thing as TV did. So the TV numbers and the radio numbers were identical, and that enabled advertisers to see total impressions and all of that stuff right across broadcast media, which I thought was an interesting model. Are we talking about measurement in terms of just measurement of actual audience, or are we talking about the ROI part of that as well?
The ROI part of it, for sure. I mean, again, I think years ago I was talking to some bigger brands that said we weren't providing ROAS on the audio channel based on DCM reporting, but that measurement is holistically tied to display banners, right? It's not tracking it off of audio. Yes. And I know there's been enhancements to that over the years, but still, I think it's holistically looking at their media plan in DCM and looking at ROAS as here's the ROI, but they don't truly understand the challenges or limitations with those metrics for audio. I think that's maybe something that we can be doing better as an industry, is socializing what those challenges and limitations are, so that way people are more educated. I don't know if we're going to change agencies or advertisers' minds given the scale of the budgets on the other channels, but at least if they do understand the limitations going into it, it can help us a little bit just get a different look at the true ROI for audio as a channel.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly sounds as if working together is a good plan, and working together with competitors right now is a good plan, because actually, a rising tide gathers all boats, as somebody said a long time ago.
It's true, though.
Yeah, but that's absolutely right. And I think probably calling things the same name is also useful. One of the things that has after 8 years of writing about this industry, it is fascinating seeing how different people who sell different bits of podcast advertising call what they sell different names. It's
very true.
Really frustrating to work out what is a sponsorship, what is an ad read. So all of that is a little bit weird. Are there other mechanisms in place to help you work together with others?
I think the IAB is doing a good job of trying to facilitate this, right? Again, I think it's just doing it more frequently and making sure you have the right people in the room to help facilitate that change. But I know that this has been a topic of conversation at some of the last few audio days, right? So I personally am going to try and get more involved in some of those events to share my thoughts on it. But I think that's probably the best way to do it right now. And I think trying to lean into what Brian's doing now with podcast movement and these new event schedules of just getting people in the room for a dinner around these events when you have the right decision makers there and keep this conversation moving in the right direction. Because it's not going to, one day a year is not going to move this thing forward. It has to be consistent and a combined effort.
So what's the one thing that you wish the industry could do now that would help grow the industry further?
Collectively figuring out the measurement piece is what will grow us to a whole different level. I mean, again, the YouTube is the thing we talked about earlier today around the lack of measurement and attribution on YouTube. And Dan said it's $1 billion sitting out there that we really can't measure, but you know that audience is converting. So it's just really just happening behind the scenes without any recognition for the work that these creators are doing. So I think that's really the holistic solution I think would help grow everyone right now.
And more events like Podcast Movement and others to actually help get industry leaders like you together would certainly help as well, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's also about how do we get more brands into the room? And this is something we talked to Brian about, right? Is like, it's definitely a lot of the same supply partners, podcast creators that are showing up to these events. And it's great to do it two times a year, but how do we get the decision makers with the dollars that are controlling audio budgets to be in that room, whether it's comp tickets or having sponsors bring certain brands into the room? But we need to hear from them what the pain points are, not just what we think the pain points are, right? Because I think they're on the front lines every day, talking to clients, putting together these media plans so they know where the challenges are and what the opportunities are to scale budgets. So having them in the room and up on stage to present those findings and learnings is really impactful in my opinion.
Brian, it's been great to talk. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, nice to speak with you as well, James.